the Sportscast, October 1st, 2021. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, YouTube, Twitch.tv, Twitter, and Apple Podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a rating and a review. It will help us out tremendously. We're also on online digital radio, which you can listen to Alabama games every weekend, college football games every weekend on the Sportscast radio station, and you can listen to that on the Sportscast app or on the website, thesportscast.net, which you can visit as well, where there's news and predictions and things like that. Joe Burrow outduels Trevor Lawrence last night on a Thursday Night Football. Two players that played against each other in college. The Bengals beat the Jaguars 24-21. The Jaguars are 0-4. Bengals are looking good. Burrow to Chase. That'd be a very familiar tagline you'll see a lot in the next upcoming years. And joining us all the way from upstate New York, a man that has access to Tim Hortons, Ryan Christa. Welcome back to the Sportscast.
Santiago, yes, Tim Hortons, a Western New York delicacy around here.
Now, up in Canada, they do nickname as like, hey, let's go to Tim's. I did heard yesterday some people call it let's go to Tim Ho's. In Rochester, do they nickname Tim Hortons for something?
Usually just Tim's. That's usually what I hear.
Okay, good. No for their cupcakes. No for their donuts and coffee. Ryan stays away from it as much as possible. But Ryan, how are you?
Doing good, Santiago. Once in a while, you gotta enjoy talking to some up and no, so it's not too bad.
Not too bad. So last night, yeah, go ahead. You got a thought to talk about.
Yeah, no, last night, it was a good Thursday night football game because I think this is what Thursday night football games are supposed to be. I think two teams that probably aren't prime time ready, but you play on Thursday night and you get access to a lot of viewers for teams that probably. Well, I mean the Bengals are 3-1 now, but aren't your typical playoff projected teams. But I've seen a lot of progress in the Jaguars, who played a great first half. Santiago, I think that they were able to get points at the end of the half. They didn't score. I think this game would have been a lot different. The Bengals used that momentum at that point. With the goal line stop to really project into that third quarter because they came out, firing on both sides of the ball and really flipped the game around. But I think Trevor Lawrence looked a lot more composed back there this last night. They had a good balance. James Robinson was running the ball hard. Find consistency. The Jaguars, I think are who we thought they are. An improving team, but they're just not there yet. So I think, I know they're 0-4, but I don't think there's reason to be too much alarmed because I see progress.
Progress is the name of the game. Of course, people have been talking about Urban Meyer possibly, going to USC or just going back to college football. I think it's just 4 weeks in. NFL, there's progressions. Small progressions. Ryan Christa saw it. Shark got injured last night, didn't he?
Early on in the game, so forced. But I thought that the play calling early on was great for the Jaguars. Great balance. They used their tight ends nicely. Gave Lawrence a lot of good reads. Laviska Shenault, I thought, played very well outside. But yeah, that's a team that really can't afford a long-term injury, which it looks like a fractured ankle for DJ Shark. So where did the Jaguars go from here? We'll see.
Joe Burrow finished. He had 348 yards last night. Tyler Boyd, receiver, 118 yards. Joe Mixon, 67 yards. This Bengals team, like I said earlier in the show, Ryan, Burrow to Lamar Chase. I think we're going to see that a lot more often. But this Joe Burrow has become more comfortable after a season, coming off a injury as well. Bengals, AFC North, maybe taking over, or hey, the Browns are around, like they have a better shot?
It's still the Browns division. It could be it's still the Ravens division, but I think we've seen the last 2 weeks the Steelers take a big step back. Seeing that even though the Bengals went down to Pittsburgh and really just dominated the Steelers from get go. It kind of showed a change, in the division, leadership. The Bengals there, the progression we've seen from the Jaguars in the short term, we've seen now from the Bengals. From last year, you saw glimpses of what Joe Burrow could do. But last night, especially in the second half, his connecting, with Chase and Boyd. They got weapons, in Cincinnati, in balancing act with Joe Mixon. When they play good teams, if they can find that balance from start to finish, they're not going to, they may not win every game, but they're going to be competing in every game.
You mentioned Ravens. They face the Broncos. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Broncos are 3-0. Yes, you can say the schedule was easy. They played against the Giants. They played the Jaguars. And they played the Jets. Great schedule to start, just to get warmed up. AFC West. Chargers beat the Chiefs last week in Kansas City. AFC West is in play. I texted you that Sunday, and you told me before the games last Sunday, you're like, I don't know. Afterwards, you said, I think you're right. I think it's open. Ryan, is the AFC West in play?
Based on what? At 4 o'clock Sunday, yes, Santiago. Something's off with the Chiefs. I don't know. Santiago, the Chiefs are one second half comeback into Browns from being 0-3. They didn't have the same team we saw last year. I don't know if it's like that Super Bowl loss hangover you see sometimes. I don't know if I'm overly concerned if I'm a Chiefs fan, but, they just started out, the turnovers early in the game against the Chargers, and they just really can never recover. I think they're better than the Chargers. I think they're better than anybody in the AFC West, but right now they're not playing like it. But I don't think I would, be overly concerned because it's still just 3 weeks into the season. There's still 14 games left. Once the Chiefs start firing and, connecting on both sides of the ball, they're near impossible to beat. And I just don't see anybody in AFC, minus the Bills or the Browns, that could really compete with them when they're on their game.
Sticking with the Chiefs, this past week they signed Josh Gordon to the practice squad. Very talented player, but a lot of issues off the field. Is there a lot of tell in this pickup? How do you read this?
I read it as somebody, Josh Gordon needs to get, find the team with the good accountability, and I think that's what you have in Kansas City. You have good leadership there, so hopefully they'll hold him accountable. This is an ultra-talented, player, Santiago, who's gotten more than enough chances in this league. Everywhere he goes, he seems to start off strong, whether it be, especially in Cleveland, or, even in Seattle or New England. But, he just has a hard time staying out of, trouble. But if he doesn't, this is just another weapon, go with Ty Hill and Nico Herman, who is really turning around for the Chiefs, and obviously, of course, Travis Kelce.
Obviously, in the practice squad, a lot of say that, hey, he might be going into the active roster soon. So we'll see what happens. AFC West, like I said, Ryan says it's in play, but it's only 4 weeks in. I do think it is in play. Who will come up top is the question mark. I don't think it's the Chiefs. It could be between the Raiders, Chargers. I don't think the Broncos will do it. Broncos at best second.
Santiago, we got some talking about injury. The wide receiver spot. We lost Jerry Jeudy in the first week of the season for extended period of time. Then last week lost KJ Hamler for the rest of the season. So their two top studs they drafted last year to really improve the offense are both on the shelf right now. So we'll see where the ball, where does Teddy Bridgewater go with the ball? He's still got Cortland Sutton, a couple, decent wide, tight ends, and then Tim Patrick, who is kind of a hybrid tight end wide receiver. So there's still a little bit of cause for concern, but as long as they're able to stay balanced, and this defense keeps on playing great, I be against, the inferior teams, the Broncos will have a shot.
With a healthy Von Miller playing in Mile House Stadium against Ravens, that's going to be a doozy. Okay, before we go into predictions, Ryan, Richard Sherman signed with the Bucs this week. He is active for this Sunday. Any thoughts? Is this a big deal or not a big deal?
I'm interested to see. Really, I thought the reason why Richard Sherman wasn't getting signed was really because he had a really tough offseason, getting in some legal trouble. I really thought the league was going to suspend him for a couple games, which they still might, pending an investigation. But, this kind of sounds, the Buccaneers, while still being 2-1, have really struggled with defending the pass this year. Dak Prescott lit him up, Matt Ryan lit him up, and then last week Matt Stafford and the Rams went up and down the field. So I think this is more of a sign of, yes, we need some help covering the pass.
Definitely a eye to look on, of course. That helps the Bucs, in my opinion. I do think it will help out, of course, with his experience in the past with Seattle and San Francisco. I think this is a plus for Tampa Bay, and also Antonio Brown is active this Sunday. So, Ryan, ready for predictions? I start early because this is a prediction show.
Sounds good, Santiago. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. First, Tennessee Titans at the New York Jets 0-3. Titans are looking good, but they're running on Derrick Henry. Who you got for this matchup?
It looks like a short-handed Titans team who maybe without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones against an inferior Jets team, they'll be leaning a lot on Derrick Henry, I think, in this game. Zach Wilson, he's had a tough start to his NFL career. Pretty much every game has struggled to move the Jets, I think, who are also showing that, they desperately need to go out and find some weapons in the offseason for Zach Wilson. You really have a hard time judging him and the offense they have right now. But in this game speaking, I think the Titans have enough, no matter who plays flat out for them.
Detroit Lions came out of a grueling loss against the Ravens, losing by a field goal after a 66-yard field goal kick by Justin Tucker. Yes, the GOAT is going up against a Chicago team, which earlier this week they said every quarterback is on the table, even Nick Foles, but it came down to Andy Dalton, which I think is the default starter, feels like. Ryan, what's going to happen in Soldier Field this weekend?
I think if Justin Fields had done any, he had a terrible first start on Sunday. So I think you had to go with kind of the proven guy, and that's Andy Dalton. I'm feeling good about the Bears though this week, Santiago. I don't know. I think if Andy Dalton does halfway decent, I think they might come out on top. So I'm going to let the Bears.
The Bears win at home. Indianapolis, Carson Wentz played with 2 sprained ankles last weekend, going up against Miami against their old quarterback, which is Jacoby Brissett. Miami had a good game against the Raiders, only lost in overtime by 3 points. Miami looked good with Jacoby, to be honest. Indianapolis and Miami in the heat. Ryan, Christa, what do you think is going to happen there?
The Dolphins play like they did last week. I think they should have no problem with this Colts team. This Colts team has taken definitely a couple of steps back. I don't know, losing Phillip Rivers was bigger impact than we thought. You know, Carson Wentz hasn't proven the leadership that I think they were hoping when they brought him in. And obviously, he's been dealing with some injuries, but I think Miami showed a lot of fight. You know, Jacoby Brissett played a lot better than he did against Buffalo the week before. So I'm going to say the Dolphins come out on top.
Cleveland Browns on top of the AFC North against Minnesota, which Kirk Cousins had a good performance last week. This is going to be a grueling matchup. What's going to happen there, Ryan?
It should be a fun up, and I think both teams will score some points. But again, when the Browns, you know, I just really think this is one of the best rosters in the NFL. You know, now Odell's there too, and I think if he's in the right frame of mind, you know, with their running attack, I think they're going to be tough to stop. I don't know Dalvin Cook's health. He wasn't available last week against the Seahawks. So I'm going to say the Browns win this game.
Browns win. Yeah, and you're right. OBJ did give him a boost last week. Washington, a overrated defense going up against a struggling Atlanta Falcons who beat the Giants last week. So now we know the Giants could be the worst team in the NFL right now. What's going to happen in Atlanta at that beautiful stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
I think the Washington football team comes back. Yes, the defense looked pretty bad the other day against Buffalo, but I think Buffalo, everything just, you know, clicked right for them that day. You know, hearing some of the quotes from the Bills players, offensive players, basically it said they didn't lose any respect for the Washington defense and actually brought out, you know, players like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, they, you know, giving them a lot of kudos. You know, I think they struggled in the back end a little bit. But, so I think, you know, Atlanta, you know, Matt Ryan, you know, can connect with some passes, can keep this game close. But I think, I think Taylor Heineke, while he's not a true NFL starter, could definitely keep Washington in this season. Race, well, you know, Fitzpatrick is healthy, and I'm going to go Washington. They desperately, you know, you got to beat the Falcons when you have a chance if you want to win that division.
Houston Texans with Mills going up against Buffalo, who had a fantastic game last week against Washington. Houston goes to Buffalo. It feels like that's an easy one. What's going to happen there, Ryan?
If you have Josh Allen on your fantasy team this week, you should be very happy. Sam Darnold threw for, you know, 300 yards against the Texans. Last week, you know, I think Josh Allen, you know, depending on how the game goes, could definitely flex his muscles again for the Bills. I think they roll by at least, you know, 2 or 3 touchdowns.
2-3 touchdowns. I will concur with that one. New York Giants 0-3 going up against the Saints team that, hey, you know, it feels like every other week we see James Winston does well. Is this going to be an easy win for the Saints, Ryan Christa?
No, because I don't think the Saints are. I know they had a great week first week against the Packers, but they just looked so bad the last couple weeks, Santiago. And I know the Giants are desperate, but this game is the first game the Saints actually get to play down in New Orleans, and I think it's their only home game for, I think, the first, you know, month and a half of the season, because their first game of the season was played in Jacksonville, so I think there'll be a lot of emotion there. I'm going to say the Saints win, but it's going to be an ugly game, and I think the Giants will play, and they play hard, kind of like how the Jaguars did last night, because once you go 0-4, it kind of cements that, you know, the season's kind of over with, you know, playoff-wise.
Yeah, the mentality is looking onward and see what changes should be made for next season. The Chiefs, wow, not a good start of the season. Lost against the Chargers last week. Philadelphia also lost last week against the Cowboys, which we think Cowboys might be the best team in the NFC East. Can Kansas City rejuvenate, come back in Philly?
Yes, Santiago. They will flex their muscle, Santiago. I thought Philadelphia was a half-decent team. I just really have no idea what they were doing play calling-wise Monday night, Santiago.
You mentioned 3 times play calling. You're looking at that closely, aren't you?
Santiago, they had, Miles Sanders, their starting running back, had, 3 runs in the whole, they just, they put a lot on, Jalen Hurts' arm, and I don't know if that's the key to winning. I think the Chiefs, like we said, have a lot of frustrations. They're looking to, click, kind of like how last week, the Bills' offense is looking to click, hadn't really clicked all year, and kind of found that against Washington. I think you're going to see that with the Chiefs this week against Philadelphia. I don't think this is a dominant defense in Philadelphia. I think we have a decent line, but you can attack them, and I think the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes will put up some good stats in the victory.
Sam, the Carolina Panthers had an impressive win against the Texans last week. Carolina is moving along. Cowboys is also hot. We saw a little bit more of Zeke last week. Panthers, Matt Rule, and the Panthers. What's going to happen in Dallas at AT&T Stadium?
And Jerry, well, I think the Cowboys, will give the Panthers their first loss. I think you had a good statement there a minute ago saying I think the Cowboys are the best team in the AFC, and I think they're proving that. They went wire to wire with the Buccaneers on opening night. And the last 2 weeks have really kind of featured Zeke and Tony Pollard is a 1-2 combination, Santiago. I think they're trying to, I don't know if it's, trying to preserve Zeke while also trying to get the running game going. But, when you got, 1-2 punch, and then you're going to talk about the weapons they have on the outside, Santiago, really proves that the Cowboys, are definitely a tough offense to stop, in the top 5 offenses in the league, I think, when they got everything going. So I definitely think, too much offense for Carolina, which I think Carolina is definitely playing, above their heads right now, 3-0. Could be a paper tiger. I think they kind of like the Broncos, based on a lot of scheduling, is the reason why they're 3-0. We'll see. But if they're able to go to Dallas and get a victory, which I think they're capable of, that will send a message to the rest of the NFL saying, we're here and we're real.
I want to get your thoughts on the Dallas defense. Before the season started, they were not rated high. They look decent. What are your thoughts over their defense?
I think that's a good word, decent, Santiago. They are kind of who we thought they were. A little better than we thought. Kind of playing, taking chances. I think, they got burned on a couple of big plays, in the passing game by the Eagles, but at the same time, they got a pick 6, I think, with Dan Quinn is a, great defensive mind, he simplified things, made things a little easier, they're going to take chances on, in the secondary, but they're also going to try to put pressure on the quarterback. I think they understand that they let teams just sit back, they're going to get picked apart, but if they're able to, get that pressure on the quarterback, that's their best chance of succeeding. That's why they went out and got a Micah Parsons, to be that different. So you saw a little bit of that Monday night. You saw the good, in the pick 6 by Diggs, but you also see bad because you saw. I think that's why you saw. Philadelphia throw the ball so much because they knew, if you throw enough on Dallas, you're going to succeed because, they are weak in the secondary.
Seattle and San Francisco playoff this weekend. Seattle coming off a loss against the Vikings and San Francisco losing against the Packers. 2 teams that need a win. What's going to happen in Levi Stadium?
That's San Francisco, a heartbreaking loss to Green Bay last week. Seattle losing, in Minnesota. This is just another classic, AFC or NFC West just battle royale. This by far the best division in football. You've got the capability of 4 playoff teams from that division. I'm going to go with San Francisco because they're home, and I don't think they're going to lose 2 straight home games.
As he mentioned, NFC West may be the best division in the league. Arizona going up against the Los Angeles Rams in SoFi. This could be a very telling game. Who could be the best in the NFC West? Ryan, Christa, who do you got?
There should be a game, full of scoring. Should be a fun watch, for sure. Two undefeated teams. Wish this was kind of a marquee game. I think it's the best game of the week. Matt Stafford and Kyler Murray going against each other. I think that the Cardinals will try to put some pressure on Matt Stafford. Chandler Jones is having a great start to the season. So we'll see where that goes. But I just think the Rams are just too good of a football team, Santiago. I think they might be the best in the NFC. I think Matt Stafford definitely put them over the top.
And how about the whole relationship with Stafford to Cooper Kupp?
Yeah. Cooper Kupp, I think that's kind of like they got some big play weapons, Robert Woods and Deshaun Jackson now. But you gotta have that guy who can get you that third down catch, and that's what Cooper Kupp is.
Cooper Kupp it is. Steelers visit Green Bay Packers. Steelers are struggling. Green Bay, we thought they had a bad first game, are looking good. Is this going to be an easy prediction?
Yeah, Green Bay. Yeah, I think the Steelers, after week one, we're thinking, okay, the Steelers went into Buffalo and beat the Bills, and Green Bay laid an egg against the Saints. Well, the last 2 weeks has been a totally different story for both of these teams. The Steelers are definitely trending down while the Packers are going in the opposite direction. So if nothing changes, the Packers should go and win this game quite easily.
The game of the week in Ryan's heart, maybe. Baltimore Ravens visit the Denver Broncos. Of course, Baltimore had an impressive field goal kick by Justin Tucker. But of course this week he'll be going to Denver at the high altitude, maybe windy in a tough stadium. Denver, as Ryan said, Jerry Jeudy is out. But hey, they got Cortland Sutton, Von Miller. That defense is horrendous. What's going to happen there?
I'm going to go with my heart and say the Broncos win this game. The Ravens, they're 2-1. They could be 3-0. They could be 0-3. Santiago losing a game in the first week of the season to Las Vegas in overtime. That big comeback victory against Kansas City in week 2, and then literally stealing a victory out of the jaws of defeat last week with, Justin Tucker's improbable 66-yard field goal. So every single one of the Ravens games has come down to the wire. So we'll see what happens Sunday. I think if Denver is able to control the game with their running game with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams and keep Lamar Jackson off the field, I think they'll be okay. Lamar's going to make the plays. He's, that type of quarterback. But I think in the end, Denver just being at home will be the difference.
Denver, it is. Do you see some instability with the Ravens, or they'll be okay?
It's hard to, I think there's a lot of fear after week 1, I don't think that people thought very highly of Las Vegas and losing that game to Las Vegas. Well, they ended up being 3-0. But then you come back and you played real good overall game against the Chiefs and, do what they do best, and that's, ball control to the running game. And then last week, I think they just kind of had a hangover. They go to Detroit, and they kind of just snooze there, and just kind of pull out a victory at the very end. So we'll see what type of Ravens team shows up. I expect this game to be relatively low-scoring because I think both teams, the Broncos, Denver, and Baltimore, definitely want to rely on their running first and foremost. So I think both offenses will be efficient in, amount of touchdowns they get, but I don't think it's going to be a game where, they're lighting up because I don't think there'll be a lot of big plays in the game.
The game of the weekend, a lot of coverage throughout the week, more than Thursday Night Football, actually. Sunday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visit New England Patriots. Brady goes up against his old coach, Bill Belichick. Ryan, what's going to happen on Sunday night?
I mean, I'm just going to pick the Buccaneers because they're just a better team, Santiago.
What can Bill do
I
to
think
stop him?
I mean, he knows what makes Brady tick, but at the same time, the Buccaneers got a lot of weapons. I think Tom will have the mindset of this is just another game. Don't worry about the distractions. After losing in Los Angeles last week, they kind of had to refocus here. They don't want to lose 2 in a row, and I think the Buccaneers, they got too many good weapons. I mean, not only is it reunion for Tom Brady, you got Gronk coming back. There's a lot of storylines in this game, that the media is just kind of running with. They're a great combination, Belichick and Brady, best coach-quarterback combination, I think we'll ever see. But at the end of the day, I think, it's a players' league, and I think Tom Brady was just, coaches can only do so much. So I'm going to say Tom Brady gets the victory on Sunday night.
Give us a score on that one.
I think it's going to be a 31-20 game. I think Mac Jones will play good. Give, Tampa a little, Tampa fits a little bit. I just think the Buccaneers got too many weapons. Santiago, Brady's great distributing the ball, to Evans and Godwin, and, Antonio Brown will be back, Gronk. It's just tough to stop, Santiago.
Tough to stop. And Belichick said this past week, he says, I think I've been on the record saying this, that there's no quarterback I'd rather have than Tom Brady. I still feel that way. I was very lucky to have Tom as the quarterback and to coach him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever know what led to, their separation. I think there was this thought that, these two would be together forever, but Brady called, I think, the separation handled perfectly by all sides. In a quote, I read this, this morning. So, I mean, it is what it is, and Tom proved last February that, what type of player it is, even at the age, his age of, 43 now? So, so it's crazy, Santiago. I think it's just mind-boggling to see a guy, so much past his prime in most circles, still so successfully. How he treats his body. Keeps himself fresh. It's kind of something how every athlete should look at. They want to prolong their career as long as possible.
Still producing at a certain age, and then I heard this past week, Alex Guerrero said that that Belichick was treating Brady as a 20-year-old, than like a senior veteran in the team. So hey, yeah. Belichick is no respecter of persons, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's true in a sense. And I think this, if I had to pinpoint one reason why they're not together, and that would probably be Alex Guerrero. Seemed to be, I don't know if he's always been, vocal, the voice of Brady's frustration, so it comes out not directly from Tom, but he always seems to cause a little bit of rift here and there.
Yeah, and I know I believe Alex Guerrero was part of the training squad in Patriots. Then he left and then just became the personal trainer to Brady. I think that's how it went.
Yeah, I think he was like Tom's personal trainer on the Patriots payroll, but something happened. It's either his last year or second to last year. So it kind of gave a little bit. Okay, things aren't perfect in Foxborough, but he seems to always be the mouthpiece of Brady. I know you in this situation. I think when you 5 years from now, whenever Brady's done playing, whenever that might be, and you look back at the situation, you could put blame on Brady for some things. You could put blame on, Belichick and the organization, for maybe not valuing him as much as they should be. I think, you see all teams across, league going out there, and trying to reload the team. It just seems like the Patriots always just start Brady was going to rescue them with ordinary talent all the time. Other than, maybe, Gronk, even Gronk and, Aaron Hernandez and Moss, they were, those are good. But other than those couple of years, they never had superb talent, at the skill position. It was always kind of Brady would will them to victory. He would make, Wes Welker or Julie Edelman into something maybe they're more than that, more than they would be on any other team, or an Adam Amendola. He just made everybody just a little bit better, and that's Tom Brady's greatness. But they never went out there and brought in that high-priced free agent because, it wasn't the Patriots' way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Brady brought out the best of players, even with not a loaded front offense. So, anyways, switching to college football, last night UVA beats Miami 30-28. ACC is not having a great season, but your thoughts on that?
Santiago, who is Manny Diaz on the hot seat? I don't know.
I've heard it this morning in the Miami Sports Radio, but like I said, replacements. I'm not haven't heard any names. Of course, Christa brings up, but yeah, he's definitely on the hot seat.
Santiago, yes, last night's loss was devastating, but what brought back is, you look at that game set, there could have been more than 15,000 people there at Santiago last night. It's just crazy, There was so much momentum going into this year, and I think even after the Alabama game, they snuck out a game where they probably didn't even deserve to beat Appalachian State. So, and then they get smoked by Michigan State. This is not the year we thought. Derek King never really got healthy. It'll be interesting to see what they go forward in that quarterback position. That they just kind of, last night this guy came out, started off slowly, Van Dyke. He really in the second half, really willed the team and should have been a victory over UVA, but an unfortunate missed field goal at the very end. But they got to go back to the drawing board, Santiago. There's still a lot to play for. There's only the one conference game. Go out there, and they can still win their division and still win go and play in the conference championship game. It's still not over yet, Santiago. There's no great team in the ACC. Right now we don't know who the best team in that conference is. Obviously it's not going to be Clemson. They might be the best, but they're not. Hasn't shown us the best. It could have been NC State, maybe. It could have been North Carolina. Probably not, because they laid an egg again last week against Georgia Tech. So there's a lot to play for sure in this conference, but I'm just a little bit disappointed, Miami. Definitely, the Gators are definitely holding down that state, Santiago, with the struggles of Miami and Florida State.
Yeah, disappointment in the ACC completely. Definitely Clemson losing 2 games, put a stamp on that. As Ryan said, ACC is in play, so the possibility of a new champion could happen. So looking forward to what could happen. Miami could turn things around, but after losing it, it's hard. It's just you gotta come back strong next week and the following weeks. Anyways, college football, 4 good games this weekend. Number 8 Arkansas and number 2 Georgia. Ryan, who you got?
I think the Georgia Bulldogs bring Arkansas back to earth a little bit. This game isn't going to define Arkansas' season. It just kind of puts them back to a little bit of reality. They're enjoying the success. They've only stayed at Texas, Santiago, which is great for recruiting reasons. Going out and beating UT and then going to beat Texas A&M. I think they're in a great spot. I think Georgia, honestly, is the best team in college football, Santiago. I don't know if Justin Riley's listening right now. But I think if they play Alabama 10 times, I think they beat them at least 6 or 7 times. There's just so much talent on this Georgia football team. And the thing is that they still haven't hit their full potential on offense. And they've got a couple of star players that haven't played. But that defensive line it's great. And the speed across the board on both sides of the ball. JT Daniels is definitely above an average quarterback. He's still not 100%. He's got a lat injury, so I think he's going to start, but there's a chance he doesn't. But I don't think it really matters. I think they win by at least 17 points tomorrow. If Arkansas stays in the game, it's because they're able to run the ball and kind of grind that game out. Also, a noon game can kind of, you don't get that hype home environment, so that could be holding Georgia back a little bit. But, I mean, I know they played Vanderbilt last week, Santiago, but they had 8 touchdowns, Santiago. Vanderbilt had 4 first downs. That's all you need to know how great this Georgia Bulldogs team is.
Ryan said it. He thinks they're the best team in the country. Number 7, Cincinnati. At number 9, Notre Dame. Ryan, who you got?
This is the Cincinnati Super Bowl, Santiago. The Group of 5 team has never made the playoff. They need to beat Notre Dame, and they need Notre Dame to win the rest of the games. If Cincinnati has any chance to make it to the playoffs, so I think Cincinnati can and will win this game because I think Notre Dame. They just haven't. They won every game this year, but it hasn't been pretty. I think they've left a little bit to be desired, but I do think the Bearcats win the game. I don't know if they're a playoff team, but at least keeps things a little bit interesting.
Ole Miss, number 12. At number 1, Alabama. Lane Kiffin versus Nick Saban. Any upset there?
I don't think they'll be upset, but I think this is the game of the day, Santiago. Fun matchup. Matt Corral might be the best quarterback in college football. If he has, if they go out and win this game, you see, bearing an injury or a major setback, you're going to start scratching his name on the Heisman Trophy, Santiago. The stats he's putting up, unbelievable. It's just a great match. They didn't necessarily, recruit Matt Corral. Lincoln, Mississippi, Matt Corral was already there, but the way they play, the marriage, it's going to be more perfect. Matt Corral's got great arm talent, and then kind of fits perfectly in the offense. Mississippi seems to always have great skill players all around the field, speed. So I think they'll be able to score against Alabama. It goes back to the fact that can Mississippi stop Alabama enough to win the game? I don't think they will, but I think, this is a game that, just going to get close to 100 points in total points tomorrow for sure. And I think both teams will score points. But I think Alabama just a little bit better of a football team, Santiago.
Just a little bit more. Number 21, Baylor. At number 19, Oklahoma State. Big 12 round off. What's going to happen there?
These are two surprising teams. Something's got to give because I don't think either team is amazing, but they're both teams that are overachieving this year. Dave Aranda coming, second year in Baylor, kind of inherited a little bit of a mess after Matt Rule left for the NFL. In COVID last year, they got 2 wins. But this year, they're one of the best rushing teams in the country. They play sound defense. We'll go against, Mike Gundy and the offensive genius that he is, and Spencer Sanders. If Spencer Sanders, a quarterback for Oklahoma State, can ever just continue to play to his potential, they will continue to win games. It just seems like every week, you see the good and the bad of Spencer Sanders. Great athlete, great arm. He just kind of makes knucklehead plays. They don't have that that great talent that they had last year coming in this season. With Trevor Hubbard and Tylan Wallace. But it seems like they kind of get that productivity from a bunch of the players this year. So I'm going to say Oklahoma State wins. I think they're just a little better of a football team. But 2 great stories for the Big 12.
Sounds like it's going to be a tight game. Number 10, Florida Gators at Kentucky. Florida had a great win against the Volunteers 2 weeks ago. They only lost by Alabama, only by 2 points. Florida is on a roll, I think. What's going to happen this weekend against Kentucky?
These I think Kentucky has beaten Florida one time in the last 40 years. But if there's ever a game that gives Florida fans, a stomachache watching, it's always the Kentucky games, Santiago. The games are never pretty, especially in Lexington. So, it always comes down to the wire. It's always, hard fought, and I don't expect anything less than tomorrow night. Kentucky's 4-0. They don't have they're 2-0 in the conference. Beating Missouri and South Carolina, but they struggled 2 weeks ago against UT Chattanooga. So I don't think we really know who the true Kentucky is. Their offense has vastly improved over the last couple of years, bringing in Liam Cohen, who was a passing game coordinator for the Rams. So it's kind of bringing that Sean McVay style of offense that everybody tries to copy. Going back to our first story we talked about, Zach Taylor, the coach of the Bengals, kind of brings that same style. He was the offensive coordinator for the Rams and with Sean McVay for a couple of years, kind of bringing that to Cincinnati. So, and I think, everybody kind of wants that balance that the Rams and Sean McVay always seem to have. So that's what they're going for in Kentucky, a team that always seems to struggle throwing the ball. But this year, with Liam Cohen and Penn State transfer quarterback Lewis, that, they're finding, their offense to be a lot stronger. Wandale Robinson, number one, is definitely going to put a lot of pressure on Gators secondary. And the Gators, I'll throw this out there. I know I said this 2 weeks ago, last time I was on the podcast before the Alabama game. I don't think I was overly excited when the Gators hired Dan Mullen to be a coach like 4 years ago. But what this guy does each and every week, game planning and scheming, our offense never disappoints, Santiago. Last 2 years, we led one of the best passing attacks to contrast. This year, we've got one of the best rushing attacks, in the country with Emory Jones, and hopefully we get Anthony Richardson back, our Tim Tebow-ish quarterback. So I think Florida wins this game by a touchdown, but it's definitely going to be all fought and coming down to the wire.
Coming down to the wire, Ryan thinks it's going to be a closer game as usual. Poll question of the day: what is your favorite homemade cookies, Ryan? Options are chocolate chip, peanut butter, snickerdoodle, or oatmeal.
Snickerdoodle.
Snickerdoodle, which is winning at 37%, peanut butter at 25%, chocolate chip 25%, and oatmeal's at 12.5%.
I don't get a lot of homemade snickerdoodle cookies, though. It seems like I always get that around a bakery or something. I don't know.
Really? I gotta check that out. Someone gave me homemade snickerdoodle one time, but I don't know.
I think it's more of a Christmas thing up here. I don't think you don't get them a lot in summertime, but they're good.
Ryan, anything else you want to conclude over this? I mean, it's going to be an impressive weekend. I mean, a lot of sports, not just the Patriots and the Bucs game, but there's also a lot of college and, of course, some other NFL games. But it's going to be a heavy weekend.
Yeah, and my Red Sox are tied with the Mariners for that last wild card spot going into this weekend. So going beyond the realm of football here, I have my eye on baseball too. Yeah, a lot of great football this weekend, Santiago. Great. I think the last 2 weeks of college football, while delivered some great games, unexpected great games, lacked a lot of luster with, going into midday, which I think we have that going into tomorrow. Doesn't mean the games are produced. We'll see how that goes. But an NFL Sunday is always NFL Sunday. It always delivers. So we'll see what happens. We'll see next week. Who are who did well and who didn't. Who needs to improve.
And, of course, as Ryan said, next week, Major League Baseball playoffs begin. So looking forward to that. All of October. It still impresses me how the playoffs in the World Series is done in 1 month. It's just incredible. Freaking incredible. Anyways, Ryan, what is the best way to reach you online to get the recipe from your wife of homemade cookies of your choice?
Mad Report on Twitter. Santiago. Also, my last fact today, our Liberty Flames heading off to University of Alabama, Birmingham tomorrow. And they will be playing in the first ever game at Birmingham, UAB's brand new football stadium, Productive Stadium in downtown Birmingham. So that'll be quite the show as Malik Willis takes a Flame train on the road against Bill Clark and UAB Blazers 7 p.m. on CBS Sports Network.
Impressive. That quarterback is a huge NFL prospect of what I've heard, and looking forward to Liberty's future. And also, happy birthday to your nephew, Chandler Christa.
Not my nephew, Santiago, my cousin.
Your cousin, a cousin. Always mix it up.
Yeah, so happy birthday, Chandler. Hope you have a great day.
Absolutely. Which I think, isn't his middle name Chandler Graham? Graham?
Chandler Austin.
Austin, yeah, because I saw on his Facebook he changed it a bit.
Yeah, that was our grandfather's name, Austin.
Oh, wow. Cool. Anyways, big weekend. You can contact us at the Sportscast1 on Twitter or at thesportscast.net or on our IG, the Sportscast1. A big weekend ahead in sports. A lot going on. Ryan is the sports center of the Sportscast. He could cover any sport from baseball, soccer, football, all the way to women's softball.
Thank you for kudos there. But, yeah, I appreciate coming on, Santiago, and God bless everybody. Enjoy your weekend.
Have a great weekend and go have a pumpkin spice. God bless. Rock and roll.